Afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Hendy. I'm with Pennsylvania Rec and Park Society, and welcome to our Health and Wellness Roundtable. As many of you might be aware, PRPS has a Health and Wellness Committee that has been a pretty active committee over the past couple of years, trying to bring that message of how parks and recreation can increase public health and wellness among individuals and in their communities. So we're happy to have this roundtable, especially during these COVID times when getting outside is a big thing and people are being isolated, and how can we address those issues of health and wellness in folks that really people need to talk, people need to reach out to each other, and how we're all dealing with that and how we can address their needs. With me today is Jason Lang, who is our committee chair of the Health and Wellness Committee, and he's got some introductory questions to ask. And also Nikki Torscher is with us today from PRPS, and I always butcher her name, which is now a tradition. Jason, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, well, I'm just thumbing through all the pictures. There's a lot of good-looking people on this call. Oh, they're all muted, so they're muted, so they can't hear my jokes. So it's
maybe that's best.
Yeah. All right, Mike got my joke. Mike Cook, he's laughing. I see him laughing. So our Health and Wellness Committee, it's a 7-person committee. We're all across the board from western to eastern PA, big to small municipalities. We have folks from DCNR on the panel or on the committee, and kind of like Dan said, like our mission is to position Parks and Rec as health and wellness providers, because that's really what we do at the end of the day, to facilitate new relationships, communicate that with state officials, support people in the field like myself and a few other people of how we can, really make sure that we serve our communities best in terms of health and wellness. Some of the shift has really been, we've always communicated that we're really focused on physical health and wellness, which is great, but we're starting to dip our toe into adding in mental health issues and substance abuse, and creating a more robust culture of health, as we've termed it, definition for health and wellness. So kind of the COVID has kind of thrown all that, on its head, and we've all kind of been sheltering in our houses. So I think my first question would just be, now we've been sheltering in place now for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and for a lot of us, especially where I'm at in Westchester, we're in the red and we're probably gonna be there for a little while, might be 12 weeks or so. So from day one to today, have you seen any differences in your community in health and wellness? I've seen statistics where domestic abuse calls are way down, which is concerning, and substance abuse is way up. So has anybody seen anything in terms of health and wellness in their communities changing from start to now?
I'm Jessica from Abington Parks and Rec, and I know our domestic calls have actually increased with our police department.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't want to answer, online, you can go to the chat box and also type in your answer there. Jason and myself will be able to read that and share your views. Also in the chat box, and I'm sorry, Jason, I forgot 2 housekeeping things. If you do want to speak, you're going to need to unmute yourself, which is the microphone icon in the lower left corner of your screen. And also in the chat box, if you would be so kind to include your email address so that we can send you a text of the chat, and also a link to review this recording if you want. And that's the third thing I need to say, is that this roundtable is being recorded, so that you know. So back to Jason's question. What have you seen in your local areas regarding health and wellness issues, given the current state of affairs?
It's a pretty big question. It might be tough to answer at this point. It's one of those, maybe 6 or 12 months down the road, we'll be able to look back on it and, kind of do that research. So, but it's definitely something to think about. I know my wife and I, we're going a little crazy with each other every now and then because we just have to look at each other 24/7. Then you throw kids in there and it's just combustible. So, all right, in a positive way, all of our trails and open space are getting slammed. Has anybody been able to, get together data or in any way kind of communicate how our parks are extremely super vital right now that can maybe be, replicated by other departments or across the state? Has anybody done anything unique or interesting or innovative in that regard? The only thing I'm doing is I'm taking a lot of pictures of the people on the trail, because we have a fairly nice trail network. We have about 200,000 people that use the trails on a given year. And that's probably about doubled, I would say. So I'm taking a lot of pictures to have visual cues, because at some point, with a potential recession or whatever on the horizon, our elected officials are gonna have to make hard decisions, and they're gonna forget that our trails were the #1 thing that people used during this crisis. So I'm taking pictures so that in 12 months or however long, when I need to go talk about budgets, I can say, look at what the parks did, during the hardest time that we faced, because they're going to mentally dump all that unless we can, have visual proof of that. So, I've been trying to catalog through pictures and conversations with people as much as possible.
So Jessica mentions that vandalism is up in the parks. Several other folks have pointed to domestic relation calls being up again, and alcohol-related abuses, child abuse, and several other people are messaging that their trails are getting heavily used, just like yours, Jason.
Does the group think it'd be worthwhile? The Health and Wellness Committee was kicking around doing some kind of meme program around substance abuse. So, not making it like the 1980s don't use drugs kind of campaign, but making it more of a social media friendly, fun campaign that also communicates that, hey, inside our homes, you monitor your alcohol and drug use, because, right now your kids are seeing how you deal with stressors. And if you can be a positive role model for them now, it's going to be much to their favor down the road. What would be the temperature of the room to doing something like that? If PRPS put together a series of memes around mental health, domestic abuse, substance abuse, that you could yank from the website and put up on your social media, would you all be in favor of that? Would that be something you'd want to do and that your community members would benefit from, do you think?
I would absolutely do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we really just started thinking about. I saw something yesterday about a little boy who was 12 years old and committed suicide. And it's just, think about the impact. It's not just kids, but adults too, who are just kind of going crazy. And, substance abuse is definitely something that I think people can turn to recreation and the outdoors as an outlet to that. So if there's anything we can do to help promote that message, I say I'm all in. Let's do it.
Cool.
Christy, along those lines, PRPS has the opportunity to offer a webinar on suicide. It was a speaker who was scheduled to present at the conference, as we all know, got canceled. But if people are interested in that, that's an option we have as well. We kind of held off a little bit, but she would discuss, not just for the people who work within our communities, but also ourselves as professionals. So that's an option that we can look into as well. She is available and willing to provide that to our members.
That's great.
Okay, well, yeah, I think that's something that the Health and Wellness Committee can work on. I know we had drafted up a few through various items, but I think we can definitely look to push that out on the website in the short term.
Mhm.
And Jason,
Yep.
just to add to that too, of our Health and Wellness Committee, Sherry Matter, who is works with DCNR and is on this call, she had helped draft up some talking points that we wanted to put together with the Good for You, Good for All brand, and to do a Good for
Cool.
You, Parks and Recreation, Good for Mental Health. And Christy, going back to what Christy just mentioned, Sherry had also pulled together a section about how to see stressors in children and how to deal with that. And so there was just also general mental health tips and also some specifically that she pulled together for children. So we can distribute those amongst the committee and review those a final time and then hope to put those out publicly as well. So that might be another beneficial piece that you could use in your communities.
Great. I like that. Is anybody on the phone call in the yellow zone now, or is everybody still in the red? And just a follow up, for anybody on the call that is in the yellow, has it changed, or are you seeing any differences in use of your parks, or how are you kind of navigating the move from red to yellow? Nobody. We're all in the red. We're all sitting here twiddling our thumbs, waiting to get everything open.
We're in the red. We're probably going to be in the red for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, my only concern is once we go from red to yellow to green, like it's like shaking up a bottle of soda and then the pop eventually is going to just smash everything and go everywhere. Like, I think that there might be like legit unsafe levels of park use of our playground and basketball courts. And, I think I'm just a little nervous about once we do open that people are going to be so excited that they're just going to be crawling all over each other. So
I know here in Center County, as of Friday, we'll be in the yellow. And Center Region Parks and Recreation, I saw them put out some statements for the community. It's on their Facebook page and it should be on their website. I haven't checked, but just, letting the community know what the rules and regulations were regarding their parks, their pavilions, their fields, letting people know that, you still can't have groups over 25, that they're not renting fields, that, while the pavilions will be open, that they're not reserving them. It's not for large groups. So thank you, Christy, for putting that link up. So they do have that information out there. They do not have law enforcement for the park specifically. So I believe what they've been doing is telling people to call the non-emergency number when there are large groups. And their playgrounds will still be closed. So and we've been in, we may be going to yellow phase, but I feel like not that much is changing for parks and facilities. So their information is available, and it affects 5 municipalities here in Center County.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki, I don't think Greg Kreiner from Kingston, I don't think we're going to put our basketball rims back up this year in our parks. We have 11 parks and we took them all down. I don't think they're going back up.
They didn't take them down here in Center County. They've been up here and they haven't, I've seen people using them in the parks.
Right.
The parks I've seen them in haven't had that much of an issue. I see 1 or 2 people. I see more groups of people out on bike paths and trails, and I assume all family.
But we're going to remove our picnic tables from our pavilions for the summer. We're not renting any fields or anything. So that's all I know.
Greg,
where are you from?
Kingston, Pennsylvania, up by Wilkes-Barre.
So you're still in the red.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks like what I'll tell you, my boss feels, the administrator of the town, and he talks to people all the time. He thinks after we go yellow, it could be 6 to 8 more weeks after that to go green.
That doesn't sound, that sounds, along the lines of it. I mean, it may take a long time to get to the green stage, especially how the trends are going throughout the country. I mean, it's
Right.
just, it's still an unknown.
In response to that, and also what Jason mentioned about the fear, and Emily Gates from PRPS, what Jason mentioned about the fear of returning to parks and potential overusage or disrespect for programs, with all the adaptations that everyone has made, I know a lot of people are offering virtual fitness programs and things like that, and it's the same idea of stay true to your mission, continue what you're doing, but with a different approach. And so a lot of people have made their adaptations, and I'm wondering, will any of those programs continue? So as you guys have adapted to provide services to your community members, and we as citizens have adapted to that, do you think you'll still continue offering certain virtual fitness programs that you believe may be followed? Is that a potential solution too, to alleviate some of what might be happening or is not able to happen? For example, because basketball nets are removed, things like that, to discourage large gatherings. Do you think something like that would be things that you would continue to do? It would be a new form of service.
The virtual stuff, a lot of the virtual stuff we're doing is going to carry over. I saw somebody text that they're doing a virtual 5K coming up. We're going to do one of those in a couple of weeks, and I think that might carry over. Something kind of crazy, it might be a crash and burn, is we're going to do a Zoom game of basketball horse for like teenage kids. So like they're all on a Zoom call and they play horse in their driveways against each other to try and still like play basketball. It might be a total failure. I don't even know, but that might be something kind of cool. I don't know. But yeah, I'm along the lines with what Greg is saying, is a lot of our stuff is going to be shut down, I think, longer than we anticipate. I'd be really happy if we hosted a summer camp program this year. That's like my only goal, really. Every special event, I think, is going to be canceled, and all the other stuff. We'll be living in the virtual world for a little while longer. So speaking of that, summer camp, in terms of health and wellness, there's the CDC guidelines and then the Department of Health, Governor Wolf stuff. Is anybody concerned strictly from a health and wellness standpoint, a safety standpoint, that even if you're, say in the green area of holding a summer camp and then potentially exposing staff, kids, families to coronavirus, so like maybe just saying no camps no matter what for this year?
We in Northampton have great concern about that, not for the staff and for the children. We have already canceled our preschool age camp, and we've canceled our teen camp because the teen camp is primarily for its trips. And, we don't expect that we're going to be able to do that. And the preschool, like, how are you supposed to keep them social distancing? Because even once we go into green, we do expect that we're still going to need to do social distancing. So, we just canceled those yesterday. So,
yeah, we're from Lower Providence Township, and we're the same thing. We're really concerned. Our emergency management team and our supervisors are worried about like the staff. Like if one staff tests positive, the whole staff has to be quarantined, and the site would have to shut down. How do you handle first aid with kids? Our kids, we've had kids, get sick and throw up, like there's just so many issues with health at camp that, liability, some of our solicitors are like liabilities there is really up. So we're waiting still for the governor on Friday, and we'll make our final decisions on Monday and Tuesday. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of policies and procedures that we're looking at. It's not just even, you know, if you can offer it, is how do you keep your staff safe? How do you keep the kids safe?
Mm-hmm.
We're right, because if all you need is one staff to be exposed, that could wipe out, you know, everybody who's worked with them that day, and then you're looking at a shutdown for 2 weeks. Like that's the concern with that.
And I just want to go back. There was a poll launched asking who's offering virtual fitness classes, and I just want to report out on that really quickly. About 50% of you who responded are not offering any kind of virtual programs. And the really hot one is yoga.
Grace and Wesley, go.
Does not surprise me. Sorry, I wasn't sure who was speaking. Pilates, another hot one. I'm not sure what other classes were fit within the other, but some of the, so Pilates and yoga, and then it goes Zumba, aerobics, and then on the bottom is karate, martial arts, meditation, high intensity training, and bar classes. So it looks like people are offering them. They tend to be the more relaxing Pilates yoga kind of classes. So thank you for answering that poll.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, this is Tyler from the Township of Upper St. Clair. So we're, of course, you know, on the southwestern side of the state. So we're in a little bit of a different position, I think, than the eastern counties for sure. But I was wondering if anybody else, what we're starting to experience, I guess you would call it fatigue at home from a lot of our residents. And they're starting to push, and once the tennis court's open and they're no longer really in the camp of abiding by a lot of the state guidelines that have been set in place. And we, of course, are continuing to, you know, follow those guidelines, and our tennis courts are not open and all those things. But I was just wondering how people were dealing with some of the more vocal groups that want a lot of these services starting to open, or if you've even seen that kind of demand.
Jane from East Hanover, Dauphin County. Actually, last night our supervisors voted to still keep them closed. We're in like a maroon color right now, so we're probably not close to opening up to yellow. There's a East Hanover pickleball group page on Facebook that started to riot basically, and I didn't actually respond to anything. They didn't directly speak to me, but they know that I'm in there to read everything. They actually started gathering at a neighboring township that did have theirs open this entire time, and start listing how many people they were having. They were still having up to 16 people playing, and were writing that for me to see. So I shared that with the township manager to provide that information. We called our insurance company, and they said that this could easily be considered being negligent to the governor, that they would not potentially back us if we were to get sued over somebody contracting COVID, being in those groups. So they decided to hold us off. And I actually received 3 phone calls immediately this morning with very threatening tones. And the best thing to disable is to listen first. Like, I've been listening to their concerns. And then actually trying to deflect with a little humor when they're ready for it, about the situation, which kind of helps. But just knowing that and explaining that there's a lot more in the background that happens to make these decisions when it comes to the CDC. I talk about the roundtables that I've been in for this with all of you. Educating them, just straightforward education when it comes to all the things that go into making these decisions, has actually helped defuse a lot of people. So I'm just continuing to use that method. And then they usually hear my kids or something absolutely insane going on behind me, which seems to help too. So, like, I am so sorry, you know. Telling them they could write formal letters, and that might actually have more impact, where, you know, if you try to write something that's not emotionally charged, but it's been working out just to honestly be the best listener for them because, you know, everybody is human. We've never been through this before. They're stuck home in an unhealthy mental state. So just trying to ease and work on that mental state first before really giving them all the info seems to be helping. So it's almost like playing therapist a little.
Everybody needs their opportunity to state their mind.
Right.
And that's one thing that I've learned going forward is you have to give people the opportunity to say how they feel. And after they get that off their chest, then you can talk, hopefully you can start a rational conversation. So good job, Jane.
Thanks. And with the poll, I was going to say, I didn't know how to answer the poll because Monday I had a Parks Board meeting and they actually voted to advise the supervisors that we started to make a pros and cons list during the meeting, and they cut off the pros and cons list and just said, this sounds absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why we're doing this for like a half day. We only have a half day program. And it is subsidized more by the township. We don't rely on it for revenue to help our budget. You know, we're in a very good situation when it comes to that. And just the list of the negatives just immediately beat them down and said, I don't know, like this is ridiculous to try and do this safely. So they wish to cancel camp this year, but the supervisors ultimately decide that at the next board meeting, which is 2 weeks from, you know, so I'll gladly keep people informed on that too.
Just a quick question here. I threw it out in the chat as well, but I was just curious if, and not to turn this into a summer camp webinar here, but if you were in the yellow come the time to start your camp, and let's say you have some larger camps, would you consider making a lot of smaller camps with 20 or 25 kids and only, you know, 2 staff in case there was, well, I guess, I mean, that's what we'd have to do. Or would you be canceling altogether unless you're in the green? Have you been coming up with game plans for, you know, if you normally have 100 or 150 kids per site, if you're going to, you know, split that up, use additional parks, just split up in the same park? Anybody starting to think about that? Again, I've been doing a lot of reading and we're in a real tricky spot there because, you know, I'm reading a lot about folks that are getting anxious because it's looking like they're going to be going back to work, but daycares aren't open or they have limited enrollment and people aren't sure about day camps, summer camps. So there's all this as far as what are they going to do with their kids in the weeks ahead, and just kind of looking to get everybody's thoughts on that because that's obviously on a lot of our minds.
We had thought about that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We do it by week. So we take up to 80 kids per week. The only issue is you could be seeing fresh faces then the next week and exposing the same counselors and same director to a different set of kids. So, and even splitting them up, like for the day, they're still touching a lot of the same equipment if they're being cycled through different activities. If they end up playing Gaga ball, you know, then they've all touched those things. Because we have 38 children. We only have 38 registered, which is not normal. We're usually like last year, this time, we were at least over halfway full. But without the schools having the forms to hand out, which was where most of it came back from, and our newsletter, which I was told to postpone, we don't have the same number of kids, but we can't even if we had less kids per week, you know, to hold it in yellow, eventually you're still exposing your staff to all of them. So.
I was just going to say, Mike, that's a great question. And we have that in the questions that we submitted to DOH, specifically asking, one, can we even run summer camps if we're in the yellow phase? Because, you know, we do have a decent amount of counties that are in that phase. Can we run summer camps? And if we can, what protocols should we be following as far as ratios, as far as sanitation and safety? So we're hoping that we can get that clarification, because if we do have a larger camp that's, you know, 200 kids, can we still have a camp of that size and just smaller group ratios, or do we have to make a camp have a limited number of, as far as capacity? So that was specifically submitted, and we're hoping we'll get that question answered.
We already limited our camp. We took it from 80 kids down to 40. And the other thing we're doing is we don't think we can do it unless we're in the green. And the reason being is there was a specific question asked at that meeting last week about Little League to the director of health for Pennsylvania. And she told the news journalist, Little League cannot open any practice of any kind until they're in the green. No sports or group activities. Camp would be a group activity. That's how we looked at it, at least. But she
Yeah, I'm gonna
literally
wait
said
till that. Yeah, I'm gonna wait till the phone call on Friday, but yeah, I think summer camp and youth sports leagues are identical almost in the dynamic of the movement and the touching. So unless in black and white I see green or I see yellow, you're a go. I'm gonna wait till green because kind of like what Jane said. You talk to your insurance, you talk to your solicitors.
Your liability, right?
That's the first thing So, I mean, it's unfortunate because we want to open up the state and that people go back to work and then they're going to need childcare. So, I mean, but the state ultimately needs to make that call so that we can then implement those decisions, So hopefully Friday we get a whole lot of clarification on that. That would be awesome.
So I have some comments in the chat box. Let's see. Karen Frank, considering outdoor only with very small sites for her camp and limited staff. July, if the timetable allows, and then holding out hope anyway. And let's see. Some other people don't have as vocal parents or constituents, which is nice. They're not raising the roof there. And someone was asking about a poll for whether you plan on having a summer camp. And right now, my polling ability isn't there. So.
I did it.
Oh, you did it. Okay, I'm sorry.
I did it. So I can give those results now. 22 people responded. 77% have not made that decision or are waiting on state guidance. 14% have canceled all of their summer camp programs, and 9% have delayed that.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, just to add over here from our end, I think it really depends too on what you define your camp to be. For us, it's truly to offer a level of enrichment and social engagement to the community, to our youth. It's not really used as an essential childcare. So I think it really depends on, from that perspective, the community that you're serving and what activities do you do? Is it through a school or is it something more athletic, arts type? So for us, we're definitely probably looking at our facility as a whole can't open until the green. So we're probably leaning that way too. Of course, we haven't made anything official there. The other concern I'm starting to have here is we're really, in terms of the human capital element, a lot of our teenagers are now going to be nannies because, a lot of families are saying, I'm not taking the chance. I know I'm going to have to be at work, so, I'll just pay a nanny. So we're starting to, lose. I've lost a couple staff just this week to that. And, from that staff person's perspective, they're probably going to be making a little bit more money. They're going to be just exposing themselves to one family versus a whole lot of people. So I didn't know if anybody else was, seeing some of that as well with their organization.
That's a great question. Has anybody been, seeing a little drought in the hiring pool or seeing a similar situation occur?
I haven't really reached out to my staff for the reason being I don't have any answers. And the last couple times I have reached out to them, they want answers, and it's like all I can keep telling them is the same thing. No, don't know. So
yeah.
We've had similar things. We've lost some of our staff who were planning on coming back, especially the older kids. But we've also are faced with the dilemma, if we are able to have our camp, we've already cut portions of the camps where we would have employed a number of additional staff. And we're going to have requests from parents, or we have requests from kids that we know we're not going to be able to use. Do we give a referral of a staff member who was really good to a family who's looking for a nanny type situation? And if we do, what kind of implications could that have on us for liability? Like, we know that they've had their background checks and we know that they've performed well for us, but we don't know the family necessarily. So do we try and do a little matchmaking there, or do we stay out of it to protect ourselves?
I would be very concerned about the liability question there. You know, I came from the YMCA, and we had an incident where same type of thing, a summer camp counselor was able to be given a position with a family who they had met through us. Their relationship was actually built through us, and this was with a YMCA actually in I think it was in Texas. And, you know, he had committed a crime against that family, and that Y was sued. So I would, you know, be a little hesitant to do any matchmaking, at least on our end. But, you know, if you have luck with it or confidence, you know, that's something that you guys can decide, I'm sure. But just from our end.
Yeah, we have concerns about the liability, but, you know, these are like our summer family too. So both the kids in the camp and the staff. So we kind of, it's really a tough call. You want to help everybody that you can, but not really sure how that's going to go.
And not wanting to give a recommendation is almost like a negative recommendation. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not even the recommendation, it's more the referral. It's you know, and then we had some discussion, do we put up like a job board, like, you know, hey, I'm a sitter looking for a position, and then you have the families, hey, I'm looking for a sitter, or do we just stay out of that?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think there's a whole lot of summer camp stuff that's unanswered. But I think hopefully we get a lot more answers on Friday. Speaking specifically to health and wellness, is there anything else that PRPS or the Health and Wellness Committee can work on, can tackle? Anything else with regard to COVID, how we're serving our communities, any of that other good stuff?
Jason, I know one.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we got the one good bullet point of rolling out a social media campaign for substance abuse, domestic abuse. That's good. If there's anything else, you know, like meat on the bone stuff we can work on, or an idea, that'd be great. Or any other challenges you're facing that maybe somebody else would have an answer for.
You know, earlier this year, PRPS offered some webinars on mental health matters. And I was wondering, maybe we offered that about 2 months too early. Would there be interest in, you know, returning to some of those webinars, or, you know, some of those sessions of, you know, how we can reach out in the community and, you know, be able to at least recognize and point people in the right direction. And we also had the opioid workshops or webinars earlier, late last year. I was wondering if there was some interest. Go ahead, and on the bottom right of your screen, there's a little reactions button. You can either do a thumbs up or raise your hand if you think that might be of interest to you to see those webinars again. Thank you.
BK had a good question. I don't know if any of you will have the answer for this one, but now that we're all cooking at home 24/7, Have you seen in your communities that people are eating healthier or eating worse at all? Do you have any kind of anecdotal data on that? I know
can
for me,
just
my
go off
daughter can't
myself.
stop eating potato chips.
Yeah, I can't stop eating. That's my problem. I think I'm gonna put on the quarantine 15.
I tried to do an online like healthy, fun, like art thing where like your kid would draw like a painting and then the parents would try and replicate the painting via food. That was a crash and burn, but it was an idea. I think I had like, 3 people try it because they were nice to me or something like that. But I think it's a challenge. You know what I mean? Like you just get sick of making food every darn day, 3 times a day. And you just want to just shove it in their face, but so I just wondering if anybody had any information on that. And then also coupled with, you in terms of recreation, you are somewhat limited. You have trails, you have your neighborhood streets to walk on, but a lot of us like basketball and tennis and pickleball and swimming in a pool, and those aren't options right now. So I think it's a definite concern.
Would it help, Jason, if we put together a list of activities that could be conducted not only just home, but let's say like some of us do end up having a modified summer camp program, activities that are more appropriate for the outdoors where kids can actually be, apart from each other. So the 6 feet apart, and because there's certain activities outside that we can and we can't do because of the non-contact and all that. So maybe it would help if we had, just like a list. I know Missy and I have been kind of talking through it. She's put together an activity book, but just thinking more so about the whole 6 feet apart and how we can even conduct activities in small groups.
We could add that to the summer camp Google Doc if people would find that helpful, because that already has a lot of good information and good sites that people can visit. It even has some virtual links for people. So if you have those ideas, they can send them my way and I can add those. I can put my email address in the chat box.
I think that would be extremely helpful. I mean, we're again talking about if we are able to hold a camp, not allowing certain activities where the kids are close or touching the same equipment, so lots more charades and kind of games where, one child's in the front, everybody else can kind of be a few feet away from each other and kind of keep distance. And to do that for 5 days a week for 8 weeks is going to be quite the challenge. So that would be great.
Yeah, someone from the summer camp Roundtable had the idea if you put like a 6-foot hula hoop around them and hang it, and then they're just not allowed to touch each other. The hoops are never to touch.
Or pool
It could be on
noodles.
suspenders.
Yeah. There's some comments in the chat box. Someone was wanting to know about public pools, which is the other really time-sensitive topic. And again, that webinar from the DOH has loads of pool and aquatic questions. Now, the webinar has a limit of 100, which we've already hit. However, the questions are prepared in advance and answered in some specified order. So we will post the video to that webinar as soon as we can on Friday, and you'll be able to rewatch it. Being there live really doesn't have any advantage except you hear it an hour earlier. But there would be no opportunity for questions and answers during the webinar. So even if you weren't one of the people who were able to register, you could still watch it later, and we'll make sure that it's posted as soon as we can.
And one other note about pools, PRPS is trying to work with DCNR to approach DOH to discuss the phasing reopening of aquatic facilities and how that may happen in the yellow phase. So whatever questions may or may not be answered on Friday, because we were lucky to get a gentleman to do the webinar for us, and we hit him with a very large list of questions. So we assume that he may not be able to answer everything, but we are hoping to secure a meeting then with DOH to discuss other phasing issues regarding pools and then summer camps and stuff like that. So what questions may not be answered, we are trying to get more definitive answers after that webinar if what we hear is not, you know, what we need to hear.
Yeah. Hey, Nikki, I guess this is more of a question for Sherry, who's on the call. Is DCNR kind of in some of those conversations? Because I know you don't have summer camps, but you're super closely aligned with all of us. So are you in any of those conversations about how summer camps and pools and all this kind of, meshes with all of the other state initiatives for, going back to work and opening everything up again? I don't know if she's still on the call, but
I'm not sure if sometimes her thing doesn't work, but Sherry wasn't on the call, but I know that some representatives from State Park were on the call with us the other day, specifically to approach DOH about those matters. Aside from that, I'm not sure what other discussions they've been involved in.
Well, hey, everybody. I heard about the 6-foot extension. What we also came up with was something as simple as your noodles that are in the pool. Those are 6 feet. If you cut them in half and everybody wears one, that's 6 feet. And I did a little research on Google. It's actually from China, like years and years ago. The judges would wear 3-foot hats, and hats would be something pretty simple that we could attach something to. And the reason for the hats was because that way they couldn't side talk to each other on the Supreme Court. So there's a lot of ingenious little fixes out there for things.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. As the health and safety committee, I mean, your first thing is to take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. I don't know what everybody's doing in the present to to offer to the communities. There's a lot of things out there. I do something, I'll type it in, which is like an improv thing. It's called laughter yoga, but basically it's a cardio exercise. And I've been doing it for a couple years. And I'm in touch with different people across Pennsylvania and the States, because it's actually started 20 some years ago in India. It's, Mayo Clinic has it, lots of things, but it's very short. But it's laughing, it's cardio, and it works. It's pretty simple, concept's very simple. So there's a lot of things out there, I mean, that are useful in the short term, the present as well. So, we don't know what's going to happen, but, there's short term, which turns into, or, shorter long term, which turns into the present pretty quickly. So here we go. And good luck, everybody.
Thank you. All right. So I think there has been some support for the Health and Wellness Committee to sort of assemble ideas to fight off the quarantine 15. I like that turn of a phrase there. And some other ideas. The annual photography contest has started up. Jane has been starting that. And coming up with a book on social distancing games might be a worthwhile endeavor. So, we can serve as the sort of gathering place. If you do have ideas for social games that you can either write up real quick or point us in the right direction, we'd be happy to compile something for that. And then earlier comments were about, how all the cooking at home leads to a lot of dishes. And so, some people have switched to paper plates. Some people are complaining about their dishwashers are getting used more than ever. I'm actually tired of home-cooked meals, I think.
Yeah.
That's, but partnering with local restaurants, especially as for us counties that are going to yellow or right now, that might be more of an option to start encouraging people to go out and not go out, but utilize local restaurants for takeout or delivery or something like that. So those were some of the ideas that were included.
Great.
One thing I want to mention too, this is Christy again with Silver Spring. We actually just started talking about that this morning, and I stopped at Jersey Mike's to get a sandwich and talk to their manager, and their business is like doing really well, surprisingly. After the first week of COVID, their sales went over above and beyond what it was before. And I said, hey, we're going to do like a virtual art contest. Would you guys be willing to do like a gift card or something where we give you the contact information of the winner and you could directly send that to them? So you can find like a local restaurant that offers like healthy food options maybe, and do like a healthy contest and give the winners, a gift card. If you could do it electronic, then you don't have to worry about mailing it and touching things and stuff like that. So that's something we just skimmed the surface on that today.
Mm-hmm.
Also helps, I think, small businesses.
Well, I'm looking at the time, and I see our hour's almost up. And some of the questions, most of the questions that I had have been answered, but I do have one other one that Emily had submitted. Emily Gates had given me. Have you seen locally the health benefits of parks and outdoor recreation being more publicized, in your local papers? And do you think that's going to help you? And how can we build off of that if it's happening? And I guess she was also asking about social media accounts and website visitors. Have you seen an increase, a decrease, and how can we play off of that?
I've seen a huge increase in people signing up for our smaller online newsletter, and a huge increase in Facebook following as well.
Yeah, same thing for East Goshen. Our social media's jumped up pretty high. I try and put silly, stupid videos of my face online, try and connect with people as much as possible. Speaking to the point about mental health and media coverage, we haven't really seen it here too much, other than at state and national levels of publications. And my board, they're like super local people. So I'm working with our local paper to write a story about mental health in parks, which I then would forward to the board, as lo and behold, what we're doing is pretty awesome and it's supporting mental health. So I'm kind of like spoon feeding it to them essentially. But I think that's a definite target to showcase that parks are essential and that, we're part of the solution during the COVID, a really tangible part of the solution for a lot of families right now. And that's not even speaking to the piece that our parks are all free. So whether you're rich or poor, you can go to a park and be healthy and well and create a family memory. So it's also equitable for all Pennsylvania residents.
Anyone else want to comment on if you've seen an increase in social media or publicity for your parks locally? Okay. Well, right before I got online, started this meeting today, I was looking at, I think, YouTube or something, and it was showing some COVID-19 jokes. And I won't list them here, as many were really, really bad. But the one that really caught my eye and the one I remember is, it's just a guy who says, I know why my dog gets excited when I say walk now. Just because to get out of the house is just a treat, you know? So I'll just leave you with that thought.
I like it. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for your participation in this roundtable. We'll probably get our Health and Wellness Committee back to work again, maybe come up with a few memes and other offerings. And please, 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 if you have ideas for those social distance games or how to lose the quarantine 15, you know, please give them to us. We would love to be able to coordinate something and bring something back to you in a week or two. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and post this roundtable. We're a little backed up. It takes a long time to download these things, but we'll post this roundtable and the group chat to everybody that attended today. So any other comments, Nikki, Emily, Jason, anyone else?
Nope. Thanks for attending, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.